My line.
Uh,
Sorry, we had a little technical glitch, and now Greg is back and unmuted, and we can go on. So, as I was saying, today's topic is the state of affairs on social media, and we wanted to approach social media from the idea of ethics, like how you can interact with it, what does it say about your brand, some of the things that you can decide and choose going forward with your strategy.
yeah, I think you kind of thought of this topic, and the first thing that I thought of was the fact that we're seeing more and more people on social media using it in questionable ways, and the thought is like, what is best for your brand? Like,
Yeah.
is what you're doing on social media, trying to get those views and likes or what have you, a detriment to your brand, or you know how does it look to everybody and that kind of thing? So I think it's an interesting topic and looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah. So there are a few ways of approach, and I like to pull out and get the bird's eye view, and then also like dig into each and every little decision that we make. Branding is one of the most important parts of your business, in my opinion. And a lot of people think of branding as their visual assets for their business, but I think that it entails a lot more. We think of branding. Some of us think of branding as including all aspects of your business. So, how your customer service or um, um, interacts with your clients, what your wait times are like, what your communication is like in all areas that is customer facing. So maybe not so much. I'm not really sure if we could call branding when you're communicating internally, but definitely external communication of all kinds is considered branding. So when you have that branding document that your designer gives you when you get your logo, generally you pass that branding document along to all of the people that are working in your marketing sphere, and they should be adding things like voice and all of those external communication things and notes onto that branding document, and it grows as you grow, and it shifts and changes as you find out, your problems. And Yeah, usually you come across a problem, you solve it, and then you need to update your branding guidelines. Yeah.
That's something I'm happy you went over that, because I think for me, being a partly designer branding person as well as like the web and stuff, I don't think a lot of businesses put as much attention on their branding guide and
Yeah.
what they're all about, and that kind of a thing, and that make will make a big difference in how you project your business on social media and anywhere else
Yeah.
you're putting your business out there. So the lack of people's understanding of their business and what they're trying to do will give you that feel on social media where it's chaotic. You don't have that consistency. You don't know what you're really doing. So being prepared and having that is really big. And I hope people from this at least will get an idea of um, going forward and getting some type of information that will lead them better to have some type of a guideline
Yeah.
for their branding and business to project that moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes, because when I get handed work to me and I'm asked to create a new piece of collateral, like it could be a brochure, it could be a new website page, it could be whatever. And if there isn't a lot for me to go to, if I don't have a branding guide, generally what I do is I read through the material that's available to me, which may be limited actually, and I read through it and I figure out sort of where the brand voice is going, and then I start to create the content based on what I know about the company, if it hasn't been established in a branding document. But if you've done a ton of work in print material and you're not handing that over to me, and then I just have like a skeleton bit of information that's found on the website, and then I'm building a new page, if I don't have that written communication that you've really delved in with another copywriter, for example, then then I may not nail your brand voice on the new web page at all. So that's why it's super important to have that all sort of organized on your branding document. And then as you take on new creatives that help you, so if you go to a new website provider or a new marketer or somebody that specializes in funnels and they're new to you, you're going to hand that branding document around to your new people. And then how you interact, I like to actually get fairly granular on the branding guide. So you don't have to. I'm sure there's probably another document that most companies have that go through this, but I like to have it on the branding document myself. And that is like, how do we interact with people? And what do we do? Because things that need to be added to the branding document, I have a client that does business globally and has reps in the Middle East. And, we at the beginning, their website had like all of this thumbs up kind of visuals, like stock photography with the right types of engineer looking people in plants, and they've got their thumbs up, but thumbs up in the Middle East is a very bad thing. It's an impolite gesture. So so then we put that on the branding guide so that moving forward, none of the North American
thumbs up.
So that doesn't come up. And so those are the kinds of tidbits of information that you need to have in your branding guide. And then how you want your social media person to interact with your client. And I think that's sort of, to interact with clients in social spaces. And I think that's sort of what we're looking at, like the ethics of that. So do you want to take the next conversation, and I'll stop talking for a bit?
We want to move to the ethics of?
Yeah, so we could talk about, I think next on our little thing, how to organize brand on social media, we talk about voice and groups. I think we should talk about groups.
Okay, well, yeah, groups as in like Facebook groups?
Yeah. Or it could be any groups. Actually, like the parameters that I was thinking about for Facebook groups actually translates nicely to other group spaces too. It's not just on Facebook, but like how do you approach? Well, you don't really do social. Do you do social media for anyone?
I basically do postings and
Okay.
very, very little management for the basic management for customers. So the social media is your topic. It's your baby.
Okay. So I'll just keep going, and like you can just tell me when to stop if you've got something to add in. Just make a motion.
Yeah.
So when I think about my brands that I represent in social media spaces, I think about like what their character is, what their personality is. I think about the adjectives of what they tell me when they want how clients to feel about them, or how they want their company to be understood in the world. So I take those ideas and then I try and think about how that works in social media spaces, and that can come across, like we just mentioned, in what kind of design we use, like imagery that we use. That comes across in what we say, but it also comes across in how we say it. And I think the how and the why gets missed a lot in communication sometimes. And
I would say one of the most important, after having it defined at least, is doing that.
Yeah. So yes. So you're always going to want to know your why, like why you're doing it this way. And it has to be incongruent with your branding document or your branding guidelines or whatever it is, or your brand in general. Right. So, so the how do we organize that? So for example, if we want to be more professional than friendly, or if we want to be more friendly than professional, then the how we express that is going to be different for each case. So perhaps the one is going to use more formal language and the other is going to use more colloquial language. That's one way. I think those things are the easiest to think about. And same with the imagery. Maybe one has a more elegant feel to it and the other has a little bit more um, street feel to it. Those are two different ways of organizing those components. But then the how we interact. So we were talking the other day about groups, and one of the things that a lot of brands want to do for some reason is they want to get their companies into Facebook pages, Facebook groups, and interact as their brand. And I would say that that could work. I'm not saying that it's a bad choice. It could work, especially if you want to be more formal, because when you are a logo organizing yourself in groups, it could make you look more like an expert in your field. It could do the formal quite well. But if you're more friendly, if your brand is more friendly, then for me, I feel like there's more traction if you are a person and people know who they're speaking with. So they will see you, you share the brand content in the space, and then they can see, oh, you're the owner of this company, or you are a representative of this company, or you're usually your job is indicated on your Facebook profile. And it kind of works similarly in LinkedIn. I feel like LinkedIn is really about people, relationships with people. And
I for sure am on board with and fully agree with that. I don't know any person that wouldn't want to know the other person that they're actually talking to.
yeah,
Not that they're actually talking to this brand. They
yeah,
want to know the person
yeah,
at that brand who they're
yeah,
talking to.
yeah. I think so too. I think it just makes for much better relationships when you're a person. And then, so the other thing is the how. The other things that we need to think about are like just because you can do something on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever you are, you need to think about what are the repercussions of that. So, for example, if you choose when you invite people to your events and you choose they invite them by Messenger and you've just spammed like 400 people in their Messenger space, what does that say about your brand? You might be excited to share your message, and from your perspective, it looks like excitement to share a message and make sure that everyone gets the message. But at the same time, it can be viewed as spam because those people didn't sign up to get those notifications by
Hmm.
Messenger, and especially in Canada where we are an opt-in um, email. Um, um, uh, email space rather than
Yeah.
an opt out. In the United States, it's a little bit different because they're opt out and we are opt in. And because Messenger emails go into people's inboxes if they have their email notifications set up, it is a little bit problematic. And I saw that on Nextdoor actually the other day. There's this woman on Nextdoor. And on one hand, I think it's, um, really, it's a great example. So she gets a notification every time somebody answers this thread or puts a comment in this group, and
Hmm.
she's in charge of her email notifications. Nobody else can change that for her, but she has forgotten or doesn't know enough about that space, so she's replying from her email, because you can do that. You can just hit reply from your email and it posts on the social media platform. And I think this is a big mistake on their part, on the social media platform's part. And so what happens is she thinks she's on a listserv and she continually asks to be removed from the email listserv. And she's getting more and more frustrated and upset as she continually asks and completely unaware of how it actually works. So that doesn't really translate very well either. So when you send messages or when you create these kinds of notifications, it is, I mean, half the time we really want everyone to get a notification of all of our news, because it is hard to get past that algorithm problem. if we're looking for organic reach. But on the other hand, we have to kind of like, oh, okay, so Nextdoor actually sends people email on every little thing that goes on in the group to each member. So that's one thing you have to remember, and then think about, what does that say about your brand if you're going to activate your brand in that space. So those are some things that I was thinking about. And then there were some, ways that which brands have used um, types of content really purposefully and almost deceptively. I don't know. It's obvious to me, but maybe not obvious to all users. And that's the thing that, Greg, we were talking about the other day, and it happens in LinkedIn a lot in one way, and it happens on Facebook in another way. So in Facebook, when brands do those cutesy little questionnaire things, like, if somebody comes into your kitchen and steals the thing, this came around just yesterday, steals
Right.
the thing that's on top of your fridge, what are they going to get? And
Right.
these pages know that Facebook recently changed everything so that if Greg, if you leave a comment on that post and we are friends, then all of a sudden Facebook's putting that into my feed, right? So they do that purposefully to get in front of way more people, right? And you can see there are hundreds of comments on those posts because, I don't know, people like to answer those posts.
Yeah.
So that's one way of getting past the your own audience and kicking up that algorithm, because we know that if you get a really good algorithm moment on one of those posts, then the next thing you do is you put out your sales post or whatever post is your content next, because you've already, booted that algorithm up. On LinkedIn, it looks different, and this drives me mental because I find it really. What was the word that I was looking for yesterday, Greg, that you found for me?
Oh,
Exploitative.
ex-
Exploitative.
right.
So
Exploiting. Yeah.
yes. So on LinkedIn, what the rage is, you see a lot of people doing this. Is they'll post sort of sad, happy posts. It'll be like children that have conquered their cancer, or some kind of like terrible, awful situation that's turned out very well. And the person is like, let's celebrate this, or send congratulations to this person, or however they frame it. I don't know.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
it's very exploitative, and I don't like it. And it's just like you see hundreds of comments below from people like, you know, tearing up and all of that, and it's just algorithmic
It makes
manipulation.
people feel bad for not interacting.
Yeah, you feel like
For
a heartless person if you don't.
yeah,
It,
and so the last two things that you mentioned, both for the thing on Facebook and the example on LinkedIn, I want to remind people that if you do those types of things, you have to think about how that looks on your brand. Does it fit the narrative of you and your business, or is it just because you're trying to get people to notice your brand? But really think about what it's saying about your brand, because people will for as much exposure as you might get from it, you'll probably get just as many people who cringe because they see your brand using this unethical way of getting itself out there just to be noticed. So,
it's manipulation. And here's the thing that I find really interesting is like, okay, so there's the tactic. Find something that's really relevant at the moment, and and have it relate to if it is in alignment with your brand, then definitely come out with some kind of way of working with that. That's one thing. But using things that are completely unrelated to your brand or or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish on social media seems really not a great idea. And here's the thing, even Facebook knows it's not a good idea, because up until last week, when you got those posts in, you could actually hit on the right hand side, you could hit hide everything from this page. And they have just removed that since last week, because I was going through and hiding everything that came up like that, so that I don't have to have those posts on my page anymore, because they really irritate me. And because they'll come in, and then your friend will answer, and then all your mutual friends will answer, and then it just keeps popping back at the top of your feed. It's just so irritating. So yeah, so if you have any other examples of those kinds of manipulative type posts, then throw them in the comments below, because I'm always looking for extra fun examples that I haven't seen or haven't thought of. And
So, other than the fact that these somehow get big views because they're trending topics or what have you, um, some of the other reasons why I think brands might do that kind of thing is because they don't actually have a proper plan in the first place.
yeah,
They're on there and they're just trying to get out in the world, and they hop on these trending topics just to get more
yeah,
exposure.
totally.
Do you see any other reasons why
No, you're
people?
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. People are throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that something sticks and something will happen. And the other part of that is vanity numbers. So they're focusing on the wrong numbers, because you don't need giant numbers. You just need enough to convert to clients. And people don't quite know how to do that conversion. So they focus on reach and engagement numbers still on social media a lot of the times. And they're trying to get that reach number way up there so that their next post will reach more people, is how it works. And then the other thing is, again, and I cannot stress this enough, this goes back to, everybody knows that Rena thinks that distribution is more important than content creation. And it's true. It's like, these are things that people do because they're stuck in the organics space. And as soon as you can get onto ads and paid distribution of any kind, is going to be the better thing for your business. It's just really going to work. The other thing, the ethics that we haven't really talked about, are the platforms themselves and their privacy policy. And we've just got a few minutes, so I just wanted to cover a few of these things. So for the most part, Facebook gets in trouble all the time for this, right? So everyone's aware of the problems with privacy on Facebook. So I'm not even going to touch Facebook, but I wanted to talk about things like Google, and because something came up for me the other day. And basically, when you use third-party platforms to do things like publish for you, so for example, Hootsuite or any of these, Calendly, if you get them attached to your Google profile in any way, those things have access to your Google space and they mine for data. So Facebook is not the only one mining for data, and Google is not the only one mining for data. It's like LinkedIn is mining for data, and Twitter is mining for data. Everyone's mining for data. So you have to think about looking at those terms of services that you're clicking to use those software, and making sure that those are also going to be in alignment with your brand values, because that's where we do the bird's eye view. We go in and we want to use all these things to engage with people, and all these things that make it easier and faster and less labor intensive. But we also want to just review those every now and again to make sure that they aren't doing anything funny. And even if they say they're not doing anything funny, it's like you just have to really understand that that's where the money is, and that's what's happening. We're not there. Nobody cares if we're on social media communicating our messages. They care about mining data, because that's where the money is. So
Yeah, I just thought of this as well. Like, if you're on any of these platforms and you're trying to get information on potential customers, and you're seeking out information and followers and things like that too, the platform you're on is doing the exact same thing with you. Like,
Yeah. But I
I
think that,
never thought about it that way, but I mean, what we're trying to do basically on social
yeah,
media, finding people and getting in front of
connecting.
getting people's information is exactly what the platforms are doing with you.
Yeah, and I don't think that anyone is really surprised by that, but I do think
No.
that they forget about the apps that they attach, and that's the thing. And the other thing is make sure you're changing your passwords regularly on all of these things, and make sure that you're going and reviewing the apps that are attached regularly to make sure that, if you shut down your Hootsuite or you stop using it or whatever, and it's still attached to your Twitter account or your LinkedIn account, it's still there. It's still there mining data from all of your contacts and you. And it's really important to make sure that you're keeping those things up to date, because your security is your client's security and your friend's security, whoever's attached to you. So we have to kind of always continually think about that. And don't forget to update your Elementor today if you're using that, because that's the latest security problem.
I'm curious, based on your final thing there about updating passwords on social media, and I'm curious. You know how, I mean, a Google account. A lot of places are like sign in with your Google account.
No, I do that.
I wonder how many people actually use that, because then you're basically authorizing all of these places to see or have your Google
Yeah.
account manage them, and there's a connection there,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's easy for you to log in or whatever. I have never done any
No,
of that. I
no.
always have a single login for each
Yeah.
place that I register with. But
Yes.
I'm curious how many people out there actually, for that convenience, are just like, yeah,
No. So,
log in with
yes,
Google.
one thing happened a number of years ago that really made me rethink the convenience of logging in with Facebook or Google, and that is this colleague of mine had connected everything up with Facebook, logged in to everything with Facebook, and then said something not right on Facebook, and Facebook, you know, put her in Facebook jail for 30 days, and she couldn't access any of her accounts. And this was her job, this was her job that really affected what she could do for her clients. And it was a panic attack. So I always set up my own email login for every single thing. And,
Yeah,
and then if I am attaching apps, it's just the ones that I need attached to actually perform a particular function, like publishing on something. And
yeah,
and then also when it comes to passwords, there's this really interesting trick that I learned not that long ago, and that is, don't use the password suggestions that they give you with the long string um, of letters and numbers and things, because that is actually easy for software to. It doesn't take very long for software to cycle through and hack your accounts when you use those use those passwords. What was recommended to me and was just actually verified by a second source is to use a word, numbers, and words. Like use strings of words that make no sense together with numbers and symbols in between, because those are actually harder for software to cycle through. And then lastly, never use admin as your WordPress username.
username.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, yeah. I delete every admin user for any site
Yeah.
that I have. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Those are my best pieces of advice right
I
now.
guess we got a little bit off social media, but
Yeah.
all good information.
I know I can't stay on target. It's very hard for me because it's all connected.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Do we have any last questions or anything? And I've got oh yes, yes. Participate in the group personal versus brand. That's always my recommendation. Um, and yeah, yay. Thanks for joining us, Mona. And yeah, and if you have any other questions, drop them in the comments below, and Greg and I always go back and check later, and we'll be sure to answer them. And then I think I even have the Trello up so I can tell you what is happening for next week, which I'm never on the ball to be able to
Oh
do.
yeah,
But
it's our monthly wrap
oh, it's
up.
our monthly wrap up. Okay,
Yeah,
well that's
yeah.
okay. Yeah, so join us back if you're watching us on one of our other platforms. We're actually in the Geek Speak Marketing Mixer group on Facebook, And you can join us there for other kinds of tips and tricks during the week. Yeah, and you can join us next week for our monthly update. And we're looking forward to seeing you at 11 o'clock next Thursday, Pacific time. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining, everybody.